I hope you're seeing the title. Nod if you are. I can see you nodding away. So we're going to talk about successful women entrepreneurs. And I have been working with entrepreneurs for over 30 years. Yes, I was 7 when I started. That's right. But if you're doing the math, stop it. And we're going to, I've talked with, I've literally spoken with entrepreneurs around the world, but in the United States, I've probably spoken with entrepreneurs in more than 30 states. When I last counted, it was probably about 35 different states that I've been to. I haven't been to Alaska SBDC. If you're listening, I still want to go. But in most other states, I've been small towns, whether it's a small town in West Virginia or whether it's in Chicago or New York, Boston, a small town all over. So I've gotten to see the breadth of entrepreneurship, and it is broad. Okay, also, I do hope some of you said that you do follow me on social media. Please do. As Anna, who's here, said, she follows me regularly particularly on Facebook. I post a lot of information, a lot of resources, and also some stuff about what's going on with me. So I do hope you'll follow me. So what we're going to talk a little bit today is what's inside you, because I think women in particular, building a business, building an income stream, even if it's not necessarily a business in the traditional sense, really depends a lot on how you see yourself. And I think a lot of women, in my experience, have seen themselves as kitty cats. Some of us see ourselves as cougars, but we're not going there either. But I do hope that we can find sort of the mountain lion within, the lion inside of us. And so the first thing I would say, and I say this more for women than for men, is it's important for you to focus on what you have, not what you lack. When I first started getting into business, and we're going to talk about how that happened, I was amazed at the number of women entrepreneurs, these networking organizations or meeting groups, and I joined a lot of them when I was starting out, would tell me what they didn't have, what their business didn't do. What women are particularly attuned to what they haven't accomplished yet, or the skills that they don't have, the personality traits, what they haven't, and much more so. I'm going to probably get than men. I live in Silicon Valley. Men usually walk in the room and tell you what they have. And I'll tell you a story about that I think you'll agree with. But I'm going to start with telling you a little bit about how I started and how I think this particular trait of focusing on what you have changed my life, and I made it possible. I lived at the time in San Francisco. I still live in the San Francisco Bay Area. But when I started my business, I lived in San Francisco, and I had been in a job that I really wanted to get out of. I had been in a career. I was changing careers without knowing what I was going on to do. I'd been doing it for a little while, and I knew it wasn't what I wanted to continue to do. I took a break. I went to London for a few months. I was young, didn't need much money. And when I came back, so I was in London. I love London. When I came, this is how I looked around then. My little doggy, Teddy. Oh, Teddy, I miss you. But I had my dog, Teddy. I'd been back in the country probably not more than 2 weeks when I was walking around Stowe Lake in Golden Oak Park, and I met a man who was walking his King Charles Spaniel, and I walked my dog and he walked his dog, and the lake's about a mile around, and I think we walked around it twice. And in the course of it, he said he needed a business plan. He had a small apparel manufacturing company, very small. It was him and his wife, but they were selling to department stores and stuff, but he needed a business plan. And he asked me if I could do it. And I have to tell you, I said, I'm sure I can do it. I had never heard the word business plan before in my life. That is a true story. I said, I'm sure I can do it. my very first client for my very first in my business was having me develop a business plan when I had not gone to business school. I had I didn't know what a business plan was, and I charged him very, very little money. I'm sure that I did not make 11 cents an hour working by the time I was done, because I threw my heart into it. I read every book that I could, which there weren't many, which helped me a lot later in life. Because I learned how somebody who didn't know what a business plan was or how to do it, what they needed to know in a book. I interviewed his clients, his prospective clients, his manufacturers. I just knocked myself out doing it. And the point here is that I focused on the fact that I believed in myself and that I could do something, rather than saying to him, I don't know anything about business plans. And had I said that to him, I don't know where my life would have taken me, but I'm sure I wouldn't have been a business plan author, because I'm sure we would have went our separate ways and done anything else with it. And that led me many years later, when somebody approached me about writing a business plan book. At first it was with somebody else's publishing company. I later got the rights to it. And that book has just had its 30th anniversary.
That's great.
It has sold probably close to 3 million copies. It is still by far the best-selling business plan book in the United States. It has been translated into 30 different languages. And it's used by about 1,000 business schools. And it was because I said, I'm sure I can do it, while walking around Stowe Lake and Golden Gate Park. So I'm just saying, the message here is not look on me, how successful I've been, but I took an opportunity and I believed in myself and I ran with it. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about my little dog, Teddy, and walking around Stowe Lake and having somebody ask me to do something I didn't know how to do, but that I knew I could write, and I knew I was smart, and I knew I could work hard. And so I concentrated on the things that I had, and not the thing that I didn't have, which was knowledge about a business plan or an MBA degree. And I have to tell you, I told that story one time to 3 women friends I had who all had MBAs. And they told me they wouldn't have taken on that job because they wouldn't have felt comfortable doing it. But we have the capability of learning and growing. But we do need to believe in ourselves. I'm going to tell you also an anecdote that I've told you almost every speaking engagement I've ever given. And to a person, man and woman, almost every single person has agreed with me. And about the same time that I was doing this, I had a friend who was sort of my mentor. It was a woman who had her own business doing human resources consulting. What she did is that this was before Indeed.com and all of the online websites to find it. When a company was looking for an employee, they put an ad in the newspaper and they got, 200 applications, and it was very onerous for small businesses to hire, as it still is. And what she did as a living is that she screened employees for small businesses and would, hire for small businesses. And she told me at the time, she said, if I put out a job listing and it has 10 requirements, a man will apply if he has one, and a woman won't apply if she's missing one. A man will apply if he has one, and a woman will not apply if she's missing one. And I have told that to audiences over and over again of men and women, and they all agree with me.
Wow.
And I have seen studies that Harvard has done, actually from human resources. She told me that many years ago. There's a study now that's about 10 years old that shows exactly the same thing. And it's not quite that difference. It's about 3 to 3 that a man will apply if he has 1 to 3, and a woman won't apply if she's missing up to 3. But in fact, women come to things thinking, what don't I have? And men come to it thinking, what do I have? So if you remember anything from this, whether it's in your business life, or your personal life, or your exercise life or your dieting life, the attitude of what you have, what are you doing right, is what you should be concentrating on first. And women are loath to do it. We see our faults instead of our strengths. And I put this number one because I think attitude is the most important thing. And I want you to take that away. You know, I want you to live it and believe it, because that attitude changed my life. I am here today, sitting in a very nice house in a very, very expensive part of the country, with a very successful business, because I said yes when somebody asked me to do something I did not know how to do. So that's the first message. All right, let me move on. And just as J.K. Rowling, who wrote and is a billionaire from the Harry Potter franchises, was turned down by 12 publishers. So aren't we glad she didn't give up after number 10 turned her down? My relatives just went to Universal's, you know, there's the Universal theme parks, and right now, the Harry Potter play is playing in San Francisco. The Harry Potter theme parks are all over the world now. I mean, there's, I think, 2 or 3 movies in them, and she makes money on all of them. And she think if she had said, I've gotten 10 rejections, this is never going to work. So, let's keep going. Number 2, and you know, part of this I have to say is because I'm a business planning and strategic planning expert, but the number 2 thing I think for successful women is they do make some kind of plan. I'm not talking about, you know, necessarily buying my book and doing the whole business plan, but you do have to actually start putting your ideas and your thoughts and your goals into some kind of plan of action and thinking through things. It really helps you if at least once a year you are doing some kind of strategic plan for your business. I'm really, really a strong advocate of it. In my own business, we do an annual plan every year. When through COVID, actually the last 3 years, we have done it by Zoom because we weren't even able to get together. You can do it even with, I do it with consultants who work with me. They're part of the planning situation. But coming down through a plan helps you set some goals. And having a, you know, one of Rhonda's rules is you can't reach a goal you haven't set. It helps you actually look at the reality of what it is you want to achieve. Doing a little bit of work and research helps you figure out which way to go and whether what your plans are realistic. It helps you figure out money, what it's going to take. And it helps you get good ideas. And it helps you decide which good ideas you're not going to act on and which good ideas you are going to act on. And these are two women who are, have you ever heard of the company Little Passports? Little Passports, these are the 2 founders, and I've met them a number of times, Amy Norman and God, I'm forgetting her name. But they started Little Passports when Amy was pregnant and being divorced. And what they did is they started they were working together, I think at eBay, and realized that they had small children, and they put together a business plan. And while they were still at eBay, they started actually doing a plan for their business. And that enabled them, even while they were pregnant and with children and divorcing, to actually find what it was that they wanted to do, figure out how they'd be able to reach customers, how much it would cost them to reach customers, and then go out and try to raise the money for it and figure out how much money they would actually need. And that's for a bigger business. But I think even if you're doing a 1-person business, to sit down and figure this out is really important. And partially it's because, and I don't know if I have this, I may be jumping ahead, but one of my rules with women particularly is to go for the gold and not for the glamour. And I think a lot of women get attracted to businesses that seem impressive to their, friends, or that makes them feel good about themselves. I know someone who's putting an immense amount of time into a podcast, and doing that. If you really are sitting there and doing the plan and looking through it, you'll see that the chances of making money in that is, almost impossible, right? So you sit there and you go, it's not just something that I want to do, something that I think people should want to buy from me. I think that I have the skills to make happen. You also have to look at the reality, and a plan helps you do that. Planning isn't enough though, and at some point you have to take action. And I have absolutely met women entrepreneurs who have been planning their business for 3 years and have never so much as asked a potential customer if they would buy, the product or service that they're creating. So whether the action is to actually start a business, to actually survey prospects, to actually get out there and go out and try to raise money. This is more of Amy's story. She took action even while she was in this very difficult personal relationship. Getting out there and doing something is really important. And it can be as little as surveying customers, starting to talk to prospects. And I really encourage people who are thinking about starting a business, especially women, to really go out and start talking to prospects, what they pay, how it is that people reach them, really looking at the reality of it. I think a lot of people who are first-time entrepreneurs identify something that they think the market needs, but isn't reality for what the market is going to pay for. It's too hard to reach. The next step is to do it now when you're taking action. Start today. I had the wonderful experience, the absolute wonderful experience that a company hired me to sit in Grand Central Station and do one-on-one business consulting to passerbys. It was so much fun, right? They had a whole big setup in Grand Central Station, and people came by. And a number of people would sit in my chair and say, well, I've been planning this business now. I've been working on it. I've been thinking about it. I've been working on it. I'm planning on it for months, for years, or whatever. And for many of them, I would say, all right, your job is within the next week to take some kind of action. Because you also have to act on the plan. And women are more nervous about acting on it than men. And can you imagine Elon Musk not acting on something? I'm not a huge fan, but Elon Musk in the middle of the night decides he wants to buy Twitter, and he does it the next morning. And he's now on paper the richest man in the world. I'm not saying use him as a role model necessarily, ladies, but it is something to say that action is important and action is critical to success. All right. So there are two things I'm talking to you about, that the two main takeaways. Remember, is that believe in yourself and just concentrate on what you have and not what you lack. And this, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, if your business is not going to be, a multi-million dollar business, Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 company, then the secret to success is to find a niche, is to find a specialty that you do well. Small businesses thrive when they have something that makes them special. And I really want you to concentrate on this. And I know that at least one person we talked to earlier today, and we'll talk to more when we finish recording, has a business where she's doing designs and she's selling them wholesale, and it's a nice niche. I mean, that's a lot of people in the art world want to do art, but finding a specific way to do it and a specific need in the market where you can become a specialist in that helps you stand out. For me, I'm a public, as I said, my my income comes from being a publisher. And we are a publisher of books on and software on business planning and entrepreneurship, nothing else. We do not publish novels. We do not publish other business kinds of books, memoirs of successful business people. We don't do finance. We don't do economics. But when we go to an academic conference, a business academic conference, there will generally be 5 publishers who will have a booth there. And 4 of them will be billion-dollar companies. They'll be Pearson and McGraw-Hill and Cengage. And we will be there, the small business that we are, successfully being able to compete because we have that niche that if people, business schools, and that is our primary market, business schools are looking for business planning and entrepreneurship, they know we are the brand to go to. And so we have been able to hold our own by going small, having focus, being known as the experts in one field. And so often you need to go small to go big. And I have to tell you, that's very hard to think about doing, especially when you're in a small community, because you think there's not enough market for it. But I will tell you that when you go small, especially now when if you're digitally capable, as all small business people should be and must be, then you can reach a larger audience by going small. And particularly like to show how you could become successful. The first female self-made millionaire in the United States was Madam C.J. Walker, who, black or white, she was the first self-made female entrepreneur in the United States. There's an okay television show I think you can find on Netflix about her life. I'm a little disappointed because I'm such a big fan of hers. It was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. How she grew a national company, you know, with so much discrimination, both being black and being female, was by having hair care preparations for black women. She had that niche market. She went after it. And that is how she became the first self-made female millionaire in the United States. Whether you're black or white, Hispanic, male or female, I think she particularly is a role model of looking at how finding a niche, finding a need, a specific kind of need, can help you grow a business against all kinds of odds, all kinds of odds. And so I'm a giant fan of hers. So let's talk about the kinds of niches that you might do. You can have an industry niche, and that is often extremely successful in various different kinds of products or services. And I'll give you an example that I think has proven, I was theoretical and it turned out to be proven. One year I was in Chicago. This was after the Enron debacle. And when Enron fell, many of you remember that Enron was an energy company that was, so you're in Texas, so you would certainly have heard of Enron there. But what you may not have known is that when Enron fell, it took its accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, with it. And Arthur Andersen also collapsed. And Arthur Andersen was based in Chicago. And soon after that happened, I was asked to speak to SBDC consultants all around the Chicago area, the greater Chicago area. And they said to me, we are now inundated with all of these CPAs who want to start their own businesses, but there's only so much work, you know, for CPAs in the Chicago area. And these are people like that. And I said, choose a niche, find a niche for you as a CPA, and you can find an audience throughout the country. And I went on that a little bit, but you know, I've been talking about niches for a while. And a couple of years later, or maybe a year later, I was speaking in Jackson, Mississippi. And I was sitting at a table with a woman who, and I was asked, I always do, what do you do? And she said, I'm the marketing director for a local CPA firm, and we specialize in optometry offices. I said, wow, in Jackson, Mississippi. And I said, and I thought, okay, this is so interesting. This is what I've been preaching. And she said, yeah. And I said, well, how many optometry offices are there in Jackson, Mississippi? And she said, oh no, we have a national clientele. And I said, how did you get into this? And she said, you know, one of our CPAs played tennis with an optometrist. And then he referred us to a couple of other ones. And then we realized we could have a specialty in optometrists. And I said, is there anything special about accounting for optometrists? And they said, a little bit, because some of them have a retail portion where they're selling glasses as well as part of it. She said, but basically, you could learn this specialty in 2 weeks. What they had done is they had figured out a niche by industry that their expertise could fit in. And it set them apart. And they said about once a year, they went to some national optometry conventions and to, you know, some state optometry conventions. And they were the only CPA on the trade floor.
Oh, wow.
And so finding a niche by industry is one of the best ways to not only find customers, keep customers, but to charge more. Because you need to have a unique expertise. And I can tell you, if I was looking as a consultant, whether there's somebody on here today who's doing customer service, but it could be accounting, it could be human resources, it could be marketing or whatever. If I've hired consultants, if they have expertise in the publishing industry, I'm much more likely to hire them than if they're a general marketing consultant or a general consultant in something like that. So that, you know, if I was going to do social media marketing today, I would find social media marketing for a specific kind of industry, especially one that doesn't necessarily have a lot of consultants already in it, and say, I don't want to just be just social media marketing for all the, you know, beauty salons that are out there. I really want to try to find something that's, you know, less likely to have grocery stores or, you know, independent grocery stores, or something that is less likely to have a specialist already, because then I can go to their specific conferences. I can really focus in on my marketing efforts. I can be seen as a specialty. You can certainly have a niche in demographics, you know, where it's, you know, where, you know, dentistry for children. You see a national chain where they do that. Various other kinds of things where it's demographics for a specific ethnic group or gender or gay or lesbian or whatever, and where you specialize in that. And so that demographic group feels comfortable with you. You can have a geographic location, especially in things like real estate or other kinds of maybe marketing of some kind. Having unique knowledge. One of the most, whenever I talk about this to anywhere in the Bay Area, I mention the salon in San Francisco that specializes in curly hair, they all know immediately who I'm talking about, because there is a salon in a sort of okay neighborhood, not a great neighborhood in San Francisco, that everyone around the Bay Area goes to if they have very curly hair, because they have just, I don't think there's probably 6 people with straight hair who walk in there as customers, but what do they care? There's a wait, it takes a month to get in there if you're a new customer. So, you know, so having some kind of unique knowledge, having some clearly differentiated style. For us, it's a unique knowledge in my business of entrepreneurship and business planning, and that's how we stand out. The secret 5 is do the math. Really don't be afraid of numbers. I got to tell you, most Americans will tell you they hate math. So it's not just women, let's be clear, but women in particular, like they see a number and they think, oh God, I just don't do math. I don't do arithmetic. It's all beyond me. But numbers are reflections of decisions you make. If you decide that you are going to post on Facebook, once a week, and you're going to boost your post, whatever, it's going to be $25 a week or $100 a week or whatever it is. That's the number. If you decide you're going to charge $50 per hour, and you realistically can think you're going to be able to get so many hours per week, that's a number. These are just decisions that you make. Numbers are not magical. And getting over that sense that numbers are going to be your undoing is really important if you're going to grow your business. You're going to have to be dealing with numbers. You're going to have to be looking at whether you're really making a profit. And I'm a really big believer in looking at profitability. Both things, by the way, let me just say, I think it's really important to have cash flow. And there are many businesses that have stayed in business, provided a life for their business owners where their profit margins are narrow, but they have enough cash flow to keep things going. And that's fine, but I also want you to think about profits. And one of the things that I've done over here, and I'm going to pat myself on the back here, is that I have found a way to have really large profit margins in my business. And it's by looking at those things and the ways I can sell it and what products and services I can sell, where the product profit margins are the greatest. And one of the reasons, I have to tell you that, and I live in Silicon Valley, I started an online company, an online thing in 1994. And we were looking at profit margins then, and investors in 94 were saying, I don't see how these profit margins are unrealistic. You can't do it. And now when you look at these companies, one of the reasons that digital companies have had the kinds of success that they do is because the profit margins are so huge in comparison when you're dealing with digital things versus physical things. So we sell many more digital books than we sell physical books because my margins are much greater. That means I have to have different customers. I have to have a different business model. And looking at over the years, as I grew my business, constantly looking at ways that I can be more profitable is something that I ask myself. And over the years, but being profitable isn't merely cutting costs. It's looking at ways that you can sell products or services in a way that you have a higher profit margin and what that is. And so staying on top of your numbers, I try to look at my numbers all the time. I'm not as successful, but at least once a week you should be looking at your numbers. And I say that I want you to think about profit margin because, as I said before, I think women often go for the gold and not for they go for the glamour and not for the gold. And I want you to also be looking at, I want every woman who I've talked to come away from this making a lot of money and making a lot of profit and over time. The next one is to build a team because you cannot grow a business alone. And so it's very hard for women to give up control, to take on other people, to become the conductor instead of the first violinist. And when I say you take on people and you grow a team, that doesn't necessarily mean, it certainly doesn't mean necessarily full-time paid employees. At some point you may need that, but you may also work with independent contractors. My team, I have a team, but I have my book designer. We're trying to figure out how many years ago we started working together. It's been at least 15. My graphic designer, my senior editor, all of these people have worked with me for well over, I think the least is 7 years. So they're part of my team. They're part of my planning. They look to me for their monthly income. They know that they have a certain monthly income, even though they're not on my payroll per se, as like my office manager or other people might be. It is a team. But I also do want to have women try to scale their business, because you can see that, you know, a much smaller percentage of women scale their businesses. Now, by the way, there's lots of family reasons and other things, so that happens, but you cannot really grow alone. To some degree, building a team. The final thing is that women have to be able to ask for things, and women are taught, you know, to be nice, and we often feel like asking for things isn't nice. We can ask nicely for things, but we do need to ask for things. And what are some of the kinds of things we're going to have to ask for? We're going to have to ask for money. We're going to have to ask a customer to pay us, or to tell them how much it's going to cost. We're going to have to ask for a deal, you know, that we want somebody, or a line of credit at a bank. And I'm a huge believer in developing a banking relationship. Huge, and paid off me big time a few times, but most recently with the PPP, my banker told me I was first in line, maybe not first, but one of the first in lines with him to get my PPP loans. He called me literally at Saturday night at 9:45. He emailed me and said, apply now, you know, to let me know what was happening. You might be asking for a job. You might ask for a promotion or a raise. Women are much, much less comfortable asking for things than men are. Nobody is necessarily all that comfortable, but you have to become more comfortable asking for things. The other thing you have to be able to do is toot your own horn. And this is particularly hard for women. I have, throughout this presentation, told you a lot of things about myself that sound, because I'm a female, like I'm bragging. Because we don't expect women to say, I've built a multi-million-dollar business, I've built all these kinds of things, without it sounding aggrandizing. I hope it hasn't felt that way to you. I hope it's felt that way because I'm helping to show you that it's possible, but you are going to have to be able to toot your own horn when you're talking to prospects, when you've accomplished something for a client or a customer, when you're recruiting people to help you, when you're looking for investors. And it is more challenging for women because they have to do it in a way that doesn't seem like bragging, in a way that men can do it. One of the things I often suggest for networking events is go with a buddy who toots your horn for her and for you, and you turn her horn for you. So when I go to something, I might always say, oh, this is my friend Barbara, and she is the expert on such and such. And she'll go, oh, Rhonda, but, you know, kind of stuff. And then she can do the same for me. So I like that for networking events, but you're going to have to be able to do it for yourself. This was you know, asking for what you're worth. You know, I have a 28-year-old niece who's quite a professional and she's successful. And because I've been involved with this for so long, when she first started going out looking for a job and negotiating for a job, I told her, think like a man, ask for what a man would ask for, you know, do it that way. And we often have to teach ourselves to do that. We also have to know that it's okay to make money, even lots of it. It's okay to have a high salary. It's okay to have a big bank account. It's okay to charge a lot. There was a very, and I'm going to keep track of our time here because I want to be cautious of it, but FreshBooks, which is a little accounting program for mostly for small business and self-employed, did a study of women versus male self-employed entrepreneurs with the same level of expertise, of experience, and women charge 20% less than men do when they're self-employed. So some of it may be because they feel like they have to do that to be competitive, but some of it is because they don't feel like they deserve as much as perhaps their male competition. One of my favorite people here is Kay, gosh, I'm blanking on her name. She was the founder of USA Networks, and she went on to be chairman of the board of Juicy Couture and Kate Spade. And one of the things that she does and that we all need to do is support other women, because that's one of the great things that has happened in my lifetime in the business world. When I was younger, and I think it's because there were fewer spaces for women, women tended to be very competitive with one another. And I've noticed over the last 10 years, women tend to be much more supportive of one another. I think we understand that there's room for us all, and that helping each other out helps all boats rise. I think it's true, by the way, with male entrepreneurs too. I think generally having an attitude of helping one another helps all boats rise. You're definitely going to have some competitors you don't like, who don't have the best business practices. But I think generally supporting other women entrepreneurs is really helpful to each other, because we do grow together. We can share information, we can share resources, we can network, and having a strong network of female entrepreneurs can help you find opportunities and learn things. So it's great. But talking about women who've helped other women, here's Oprah, another woman who became a billionaire. And she said, nothing happens until, you make it happen, basically, until you decide to make it happen. And that's really, the message here is that you have to take control of your own life, to find that lion inside of you, to find that the one who's not necessarily a predator, but who can take control of their life and in charge of it. So with that, I think I'm right on time here of ending.